Today I thought I'd talk about stoves because I get tons of questions on stoves and I've had them all. I'm carrying a canister stove today and I always come back to that canister stove as much time as I spend trying everything else. I mean, for years I did carry a zip stove, which is a wood burning stove, but I did the whole CDT and GDT with that thing, and I really like wood fire stoves, but they have some downsides, and a lot of people are going to think I'm going to say the soot, and that was never a problem, and I'm done with it. It goes in a bag that keeps the inside of my pack clean. I would clean it, when I came in, but I don't clean it every day. It just gets all sooted up, and you throw it in a bag, and it's secure and not going to get anything dirty. But in that case, that stove was heavy. I mean, the whole kit, it had a large titanium pot that went on top of, a pot about this big. So really the stove was quite large, but it was like a blacksmith's forge. You put oxygen to it, once you got it started and put oxygen to it, it'd boil water really fast. And part of the reason was because you had such a large pot to catch that flame at the bottom. And, the other problem with wood fire stoves today, a lot of places they're not allowed because of the new normal in forest fires. And so you got people that are careless with anything that can start a fire, but they frown on wood fires. And actually now they're kind of frowning on alcohol stoves. But really, a wood stove, there's more preparation when, say you're on a through hike like I was doing when I carried that zip stove. I'd spend more time because I had to prepare the fire, get it going, then put the oxygen to it. It just burned down to ash. When I was done eating, I'd just dump it out and bury it, and it was no muss, no fuss. But I don't know what that is. Probably somebody with a dune buggy tearing up the forest. So time-wise, a canister stove is so much faster, clean burning. I just stopped an hour ago and had a cup of hot chocolate and a stoop waffle. So I boiled about a cup and a half, 2 cups, and I didn't bring it to a boil, but it was starting to roll in 3 minutes. And, it's a still day. If it was windy, that would be different. I'd have to work a little harder at using my sit pad for a wind screen, but really, compared to like an alcohol stove, a butane stove has twice the energy and will boil water twice as fast. So I like the idea of an alcohol stove, and if I was really just maybe base camping and doing more cooking, which is another thing you have to consider, what are you going to use it for? Because one size doesn't fit all. If you're going to do a lot of cooking, you might want a couple different stoves. I mean, if I was just base camping, I would probably bring my canister stove and a little cat can alcohol stove that you make. You just punch some holes in it. It's actually very not real efficient fuel wise, but it'll boil water really quick, and you can set it to simmer. I think making pancakes on the trail, if you were to bring a frying pan, those canister stoves are like little blow torches, and much harder to cook on than if you had like an alcohol stove. I think if I were going to do a lot of that kind of thing, I'd probably get a nice alcohol setup, not just make my own, but get a little bigger one that would work with a frying pan. But my mode of operation right now, even on short hikes like this, I'm just going to be out 2 or 3 days here, and I just walk all day. I do lots of miles. I don't want to sit down and spend a half hour making a hot chocolate. I just want to set my blowtorch up, heat that water, eat, and move on. So it all depends on, you know, what you want to do. If you're doing a through hike, if you're doing a 2 or 3 day hike, you're going to spend plenty of time in camp playing with a little wood stove. You don't have to carry any fuel. When I was carrying the alcohol stoves, I pretty much had those poles that I made. I called them pole vaults. You know, I could store stuff in them, and in one I would store a lot of alcohol in little test tube screw top bottles. So that was kind of like weight that was out on my arms that wasn't on my back, and I would carry a lot of it because, again, weight wise, you're never going to beat that butane stove. You know, just take one in the same conditions, take a full canister and keep boiling water. Just do 2 cups at a time and keep boiling it, and see how many cups of water you can boil with 2 cups of water. Then do the same thing with the most efficient alcohol stove you can find, and you'll find that weight wise, you're just going to be at a deficit compared to a butane stove. And I see now, I think it's called a Lofi, L-O-F-I, I think it is, wood stove that looks very interesting. It's all titanium. It's about the size of a soup can. It has it's kind of like the zip stove theory, but it has a fan built into the bottom of it, and when it's going, you can pick it right up by the sides. You know, it is made out of titanium, but all that heat's getting shoved straight up, and they say you can pick the thing up, but it's $200 or darn close to it. So I'm not buying a $200 wood stove. If I was going to go to a wood stove today, it'd probably be homemade, maybe one of those gasifiers or something. But again, you got to have a lot of time to play around with it. It's not something, if you're trying to make time, that you're going to want to do. So figure out what you want to do, try them all, see what works for you. So before I close out this video, let me make a few more points about a gas butane stove. So again, there's a million stoves out there, different types of kits you can put together. You got to kind of figure out what works for you, real estate wise, weight wise, what you want to do cooking wise. Are you just boiling water? Are you making a gourmet meal? But I just use a Tokes 550 cup. It's big enough for me to boil 2 cups of water if I need, but usually I'm just boiling 1. I can fit my freezer bags in here with an omelet in it, with the ova eggs. If I want to boil an omelet, works just fine. It's just the right size. It all fits together with a lighter. My little BRS stove, which I love this thing. I've used it for years and have never had a problem with it. And if I did, I'd just buy another one. Now, this whole thing weighs 9 ounces, but you got to work at it. So I know what I use gas-wise, and so I fill my own canisters, and I fill them to 4.5 ounces. So the whole thing's 4.5 ounces. I don't know what that is gas-wise, but it's a lot of boils, more than I usually use. And so to fill them, I've showed this before. So these are these little test tubes that I put in my pole vaults when I carry them. I'm really not carrying those anymore, but sometimes I think I should go back to them. That's another video. Have their pros and cons. But anyway, I bought a lot of these little test tubes because they fit perfectly in my pole vaults. And in them, I put things like, well, this one has needle and thread. So, you know, if you're carrying needles and thread, you don't want it poking into the rest of your gear, so you got to put it in something safe. So I put it in these, and in the same one, I carry my butane filler. So you can, any hardware, just about any trail town, you'll find cans of refill butane. And there's 2 of these in each of those cans. But where these things are like $5 to $7, those cans are usually $3. So you'd have, if you did fill 2 canisters, you'd have $1.50 in one of these things. And so anyway, it's just a little tiny funnel with a couple of really small little grommets, and I mean, that's it. You fit that onto your tank and the refiller, and you're done. And I don't put much in mine, so if there are containers in like a local hiker box or something, I'll fill everything I can and leave it there, or I'll just leave the butane that I haven't used. But it's still a whole lot cheaper, and I control my weight and what I actually need to carry. The other thing, and probably even a bigger weight savings, is knowing how much you're going to use this stove. And so if you want to lose a lot of weight with a gas stove or any other stove you're carrying, you got to be a little open-minded. You know, for a long time I heard all this cold soaking. I'm not a cold soaker, but I have tried and experimented, and I've found more meals now after trying and experimenting with lots of things. Not just soaking, but just cold wraps. If I do carry tortillas, I can eat beans and rice cold and enjoy it. My breakfast in the morning is just cold cereal. So I've really kind of embraced eating cold. And on a long trip, probably on a through hike, I wouldn't even carry a stove. But on shorter trips, you know, I like a cup of tea with my stroopwafel once in a while, and so I would carry it. But kind of eliminating having to cook every single meal is going to save you a ton of weight, and maybe you'll get to a point like me where you just don't even miss it if you don't carry it. So anyway, I'll put a closer picture of these refillers on here. You can find them on Amazon. Filling your own tanks is going to save you a lot of money. And like I say, I don't think you can, depending on what kind of cooking you're going to do, I don't think you can beat a little stove, energy-wise, time-wise. You know, do your own due diligence, figure it out yourself. Experience will help. Keep smiling.